is a guy who has the background of this, and he's lending out his arm in an olive branch. And then you have guys who are coming up here who are trying to like actually push away the help and defend the reasons why they want to push away the help. So it's like, dude, you have a failing bridge right here, and you don't have help, and you're pushing people away. Look at yourself.
Yeah, so it's kind of tough, but KG, so I didn't mean to cut you off there. Just kind of wanted to say, like, in response, that X1 is going to be,
flawless.
That's gonna be the better version of, obviously he's chirping from the sidelines right now, but X1 is going to be, delivering better on Pulsechain, in my perspective, just because of the testnet that's up. But that's my limited belief.
Well,
what do you think, KG? And you probably had more to say.
So as far as X1, again, my position is not maximalist, right? Patience goes out to everybody who is in software development, because you could test and test and test in all these test environments, but the thing is never real until it's real, and you never know exactly how it's going to respond in a production environment. So there was probably no reality in which Pulsechain was going to launch perfect. There's probably no reality in which X1 is going to launch perfect, because that's just not the nature of software. Every piece of software that you launch will have bugs. It will have problems, 100% guaranteed. And if anybody out there is thinking, oh, somebody has the secret magic sauce to the perfect piece of version 1 mainnet software, you just shatter the illusion that you're living in, because it does not exist, and it won't exist, because that's the nature.
Yeah, and that's again, that's your own opinion, and it's totally valid in your own reality and everything that's going on there.
No, that's not an opinion. That's every piece of software that's ever launched, both in crypto and legacy.
Right. So if you have a top tier dev or engineer trying to say, yo, let me look under the hood and see what's going on, I'd be like, yeah, bro, fucking viral, because people are like, holy shit, Richard Hart and fucking Jack Levin are working together, right? And then 2 is getting a fresh set of eyes on your shit for someone to look at,
No, I totally agree. Like, it would be actually an amazing reality if they did team forces or join forces, because they have 2 very strong, very intelligent communities that crypto as a whole would only stand to grow if they joined forces and took on the legacy world together. Because what we get lost in this crypto space is, in the beginning, this is one beautiful thing when it was only Bitcoin, right? This is what I'll give to the only Bitcoin reality, is that it was Bitcoin versus legacy. But then, and I love the innovation, right? Again, I'm an Ethereum guy and an Ethereum EVM guy. But what happened is it created a reality where, instead of it being us versus them, it became us versus us versus us versus us versus them. And so now crypto as an entire industry is weaker in comparison to us, quote, taking over the financial world. We are actually hurting ourselves. You have the best blockchain developers in the world working on Ethereum, right? And it's hard to say that there's better blockchain developers in the world, because all of these things that we're talking about are forking their innovations. They're creating sharding. They're creating proto-dank sharding. They're the ones that are inventing this technology, and all these forks are just following suit. And those guys, when they release software, still has bugs. I just want everybody to have a realistic vision of what, it doesn't matter what crypto project, it doesn't matter what legacy project, if you are expecting flawlessness when it comes to software, then you're not living in the software reality.
You're prone to have bugs when you release updates and especially new software. But my main thing is that the only problem I have is that when Pulsechain did come out and you try to criticize in terms of why things are not working, I understand things do take time to index, especially with PulseScan and all that. But when you ask for help and you get criticized and questioning why the things are working the way they are, you completely get shit on by the community, and there is no real improvements overall. So I find it very hard to say to yourself, okay, how can we proceed into something that's a lot better and continue to scaling when the community especially doesn't want to hear any criticism in terms of how they can actually improve something overall. But again, it's hard to foresee what's going to happen. I think we're prejudging Pulsechain too early here. Again, the whole slogan that Richard said was to, again, take market share away from Ethereum, right? To kind of take a lot of that share and lower the gas fee. So let's give it some time. Let's see what happens with the bridge 4 weeks, 1 month from now, and let's see if it really can lower those gas fees on Ethereum. Let's see what Pulsechain can do, to be honest.
Great point. The issue with Pulsechain, and I agree, one thing that I'm advocately against is this toxic maximalism. Every good piece of software has to have feedback. You've got to have people that say, I like this feature. You got to have people that say, I don't like this feature. And you've got to have people that say, this sucks, here's what's broken. You have to. Otherwise, the software cannot be refined. The main issue with Pulsechain is not that it's having bugs. Everybody who was looking at it objectively always knew it was going to have bugs, 100% guaranteed. The issue is that the community and the narrative was it's going to be flawless. And so people that didn't know any better believed that it was going to be flawless and spread the narrative that it was going to be flawless. So the problem the problem is not the issues and the bugs. The problem is the expectation of product that was spread throughout the space.
Yeah.
By Richard also?
Well, we sacrifice anyone that sacrificed.
But
You sacrifice.
at what point are the Hex
Hang on.
OGs and the Pulse Maxes and the Richard Hart Maxes? At what point are they going to say, Richard Hart, now you're taking a piss. The guy's offering you fucking help. Why the fuck aren't you taking it?
Well, because people have pride and people have their own, their own. You can't explain other people's realities too much. I think the thing with the Zen community, and I think that there's a lot of people in here that have the same understanding of this, is that we do want flawless operation. We do want mass adoption. We do want these things that I believe that the greater crypto community want as well. The issue lies is when we launch on blockchains, Zen, right, which is this virus, which has been said by multitudes of people. And it kind of is a virus, right? It's checking out what is going on your blockchain, what is happening. Are you ready for mass adoption? 400 lines of code is not that much. If you're not able to handle 400 lines of code, I'm not saying Pulsechain, I'm just saying in general, right? If you're not able to handle 400 lines of code, which Pulsechain is doing, they're doing fine, we're minting there. But if you're not able to handle that and we're stress testing your shit and your shit's not working, like you're not ready for mass adoption. So any type of like voice you have behind your offering, it's kind of like going at the wayside because it's not true. And so yes, we're still relatively early to Pulsechain, and I respect the fuck out of like, hey, I'm grateful because obviously I've vested interest in it. I was a Hexican. I am a Pulsechain. I sacrificed early. But at the end of the day, we're trying to hold the bar, at least from my perspective, as far as the Zen community goes, we're trying to hold that bar for everyone at a certain standard. And we want this to be mass adoption.
So far, I've done 8 transactions, and every one of them have gone through very rapidly and fluidly. And this is all on Pulsechain. So I'm not seeing, even when I did a bridge, it worked fine. I know that there are people that are having problems with it, but because it is still so early and we've got such a flood of people trying to do different transactions, people are doing something else that I've noticed, and I've heard this multiple times, where they will get these transactions going. They'll initiate a transaction and then it'll just start rotating, and it's just hung there, and it's hung there for sometimes 20 or 30 hours. That's also an issue. If you see something like that happening and you continue to do that, it's like, punching a wall and just expecting to be able to blast through it. Just because you keep on adding transactions or canceling transactions doesn't mean that anything's going to happen faster for you. So I think that people have to, take that into consideration and just kind of like hold off until this is actually repaired. Because I had suggested to a developer too that I thought about the idea of, horizontally scaling, because obviously, when you have a large number of people that are wanting to do these transactions, this bridging, you're going to need a lot of, scale. I mean, you really just need a lot of scale. I don't know. I just feel very positive about everything that's happened. With all my transactions, though, I can say that they've gone through seamlessly and quickly. And, I just don't see that there's any issues.
Of course, it's a fork of Ethereum, bro.
Yeah, that's going to be the only thing. It's a pretty large load and a pretty large thing to do to fork Ethereum, right? So it's cool that you're having transactions go through. Mine are working fine. I'm not on a bridge because I don't need to bridge. I got my Pulse. I got my Pulsex. I'm chilling,
The conundrum with this, cheap fees narrative, in order for fees to be cheap, it means that the network isn't priority. People aren't fighting for priority in transactions. So in some ways, it is representative of a transaction that isn't a network that isn't super popular. So if we want Pulsechain to do what we all want it to do, and number go up and pulse number go up and burn lots of pulse and all these things, well, fees aren't going to be cheap. Pulsechain is a fork of Ethereum, and if Pulsechain becomes as popular as Ethereum, then Pulsechain is going to be as expensive as Ethereum. Pulsechain did not solve the fees getting expensive problem. And so will we keep fees cheap? No, theoretically, if all these projects are successful and popular and more builders and more users and more protocols and more infrastructure comes to Pulsechain, it's going to be expensive.
So I have a question now before you go, Cash. So how does that solve, like, how's that going to make ETH cheaper? Because if Pulsechain is just going to get expensive in the end, like, it's not going to make ETH any cheaper.
You're taking market share. That's what you're doing. That's the whole slogan that Richard had, is that we're gonna take a lot of the market share that Ethereum has and cut it in half. So you're gonna have development on Pulsechain, you're gonna have development on Ethereum. That's basically what he was saying.
Yeah.
So essentially they're both going to run parallel to one another. That's about it, and that's going to alleviate the stress on Ethereum.
But that doesn't work out like how you guys are saying. A high traffic network means that like what he's saying is their priority. There's always going to be priority on ETH. So it's not going to make the fees cheaper, even if you split anything in half.
Think of it this way. Say, for example, Ethereum's getting 500 transactions a day. If that loads lighter on that side and you have a chain that's running parallel to it, you have one chain doing 150, 200,000 transactions. Instead of the other side doing that much, they're only doing 180, 190. Effectively, that's just lightening the burden on each side. So why wouldn't that lower the cost basis of what you pay in transactions?
Because each network is individual. Like, there's always going to be priority over one. If I'm on ETH, I'm not going to sit over there and be like, oh, well, if I was on Pulsechain. No, you're going to be on ETH. Like, if you want to be on Pulse, you'll go on Pulse. But that doesn't do anything for fees. Like, launching another network and having it parallel, yes, it does like take market share, but it's not going to drop fees. It doesn't take away priority. It doesn't take away the users that are already there.
It's not about snatching users up. It's about giving users an alternative. It's not about.
But if it's the same as far as like if Pulsechain is going to get expensive, that's not an alternative. That's my whole point. Is like if this is not like solving the problem on ETH, it's actually like making another problem. You get where I'm coming at?
Not quite.
It's really just creating another ETH problem. So we're going to need layer 2s for Pulsechain. Like, of course price does go up, but like I'm trying to point out something that you guys are like either like trying to hover over or not. It's creating another issue.
No, it's not creating another issue. I hear exactly what you're saying. It's just not. It's not solving it. You're right. It's not. It's basically.
I don't want to interrupt you. But that was the whole premise to my question. Is it's not going to make it cheaper. It's not solving it. Like solving the problem would be making it cheaper or offering something cheaper. It's not. It's just opening the door across the street. So that was my whole point.
Well, all right. Okay, I got you. Let me expand on my analogy just a little bit. All right. So you got McDonald's that's busy lying around the corner. You open up McDonald's across the street, right? And why are people going to go to that McDonald's? This McDonald's over here that they're used to going to is their favorite McDonald's. Well, now McDonald's across the street says, hey, come over to our McDonald's. Everything is 50% off. And that's what Pulsechain is in the beginning, theoretically, right? If it's not as busy. Everything here is 50% off. Now, when they start getting busy and that line wraps around the corner, then prices are going to go back up and they're going to reach a stasis. So it didn't solve the overarching fees get expensive problem, but if it does what Richard wanted it to do, and that is take some of the pressure, so to speak, off of Ethereum, then it'll spread out the business.
There's also a lot of Taco Bells and other restaurants like Binance, Polygon, Phantom. So what's the whole point of Pulse if it's you're just offloading? That's kind of like my perspective. I'm not a Pulse guy. I didn't sacrifice or anything.
Okay, so I just want to just round out what I was saying, and I like the analogy of the McDonald's. What Richard has created is the McDonald's with the playland, though, right? And the playland is Hex, and that's the goal: is to bring people in and say, "Hey, we're the better McDonald's because we've got the playland in the back," and it ends up being the better McDonald's, right? With products and services that are only in his McDonald's, right? Because when you can start to short Hex and Geraldo starts his NFT marketplace, there's there's going to be things that stress the network and keep the fees high. So it becomes Richard Hart's ecosystem, which has always been the plan. So these other narratives are marketing and they were good, and maybe the chain would have stayed emptier, and this conclusion that we're all coming to would have taken a couple more months because the Pulse and Hex community would have bonded together and ensured that they launched in a way that would maybe creep the fees up slower. But Zen has highlighted that the narrative of cheap fees is just not there. But other than that, everything I've heard so far, I concur with.
But again, I think we're prejudging this. It's going to take some time. I think it's going to show how low these Ethereum gas fees are going to get after the launch that Pulsechain had. And how many developers come on there and start building, right? It's kind of a little bit too early to say that Pulsechain hasn't worked yet. So let's wait it out.
Yeah, I agree. To KG, to kind of help your analogy there, this is like opening a Wendy's across the street from McDonald's, and it's a brand new business. But yeah, man, I hear you guys.
I wanted to highlight some stuff that a lot of people don't know, or maybe a lot of people does know. Let's take, say, for example, for me as a person that goes to all the chains that have been in the beginning of all the chains, right? For example, let's take Aptos. For example, let's take Aptos, for example, and let's take Sui, for example. Let's take ZK Sync Era. Let's take a lot of different types of chains that have started in the beginning. I never saw something that happened like with those 3 new chains that are layer 1 that happened like with Pulsechain. Okay, so the main thing is, before somebody wants to bring something out, don't brag about the thing that you're gonna have is gonna be the best thing, because you don't know, right? So that's the main thing why a lot of people are upset. But I cannot blame it, because people trust in man, and you always need to know that you cannot trust a man, because a man can change their words from one day to another. So without trying to bring that, we have to give everything time to get to an equilibrium. Like the same thing people start talking about Zen in the beginning. Everything, people always have an opinion about something. But when you are in the beginning from a chain and seeing the development going on, that they are working on stuff and they are preparing stuff, right? I'm also upset, and I have to be honest, because I waited for 2 years, right? But if I go to Aptos, and I was also waiting for 1.5 years, and I saw the progress I saw when they launched was very different. I go to Sui, and it was not a fork of Ethereum. It was not a fork of Polygon. It was made on the move development. So the main thing here is we need to understand how things work before we start talking. And that was my point for today.
I think people are sour about I think people are sour about price too, because I've been waiting 2 years and I'm not even up 2x. So I think a lot of people were mad about that too.
Yeah, this thing was hyped up, not by the community, but by Richard. Richard was doing live streams saying, "I'm saving everybody on Ethereum."
Richard owes me like probably 3 months of my time back just because of the flexing. I love the intel and respect to Richard, because honestly, Richard's how I got in Zen.
He owes me and all simples.
You can get Pulse. I mean, if you, depending on where you look, like it's holding steady at 3x sacrafice, wrap Pulse on Uniswap on the Ethereum side. So like that's what people are paying consistently for Pulse right now. They can't get it. So like I don't know.
If anyone wants it at that price, I'll sell it to them. DM me, please.
Yeah, sure. But I'm just saying that you can get like the price thing is still debatable, and then the traffic thing, the gas fees thing is definitely debatable too, and then the price thing too. Like what the issue is the liquidity flow. Definitely got to stay as open-minded as possible. This is a brand new deal, and so far it's like pretty sweet, I think.
But for people who are trying to come over there, like that's not even an advertisement if the bridge is not working, right? Like
I'm first and foremost excited about Pulse. I want it to be successful. There's no Zen is launched on Pulse. It's going to make Pulse more successful because we're burning the native token. There's really no beef or anything like that. It's just we expected something. I personally expected something that I didn't get, and that's it.
We waited over 2 years. It's only fair that we have a couple months of moving without the whole rest of the world that didn't get involved and have all that wait. It's time for them to test their patience.
Yeah, for sure. So I feel kind of privileged to have Pulse right now, to be totally honest with you, but I also sacrifice for that, so that is what it is.
Richard really he his boasting of delivering the best chain in terms of fees and speed really opened him up to a lot of attacks. And I think if you recall a lot of discussions, we've had a lot of discussions here where we say that is in the real world. That is really unheard of. You don't do that. You don't go making such outrageous numbers.
Zen T, real quick, just let me chime in with this, is we see it in politics a lot, and you got to remember, Richard is not a developer, he's a salesman, which I respect the salesman, you know what I mean?
I'm coming to the point, I'm coming to the real point, but fact is, your sale, but there are implications to this, you see. I mean, even in sales, especially if you're selling a product, there's certain guidelines, there's certain boundaries. You really got to be very careful, otherwise you expose yourself to serious legal risks. And this is real.
So what we need to understand, guys, is that there are two communities here. There's the Zen community that stands for transparency, fair crypto, fair principles, against the community where the community is happy for somebody to own over 90% of the supply of something. They're happy for their founder to not be transparent. So that's a big disparity between the two communities. The reason why Hex is gatekept is because he has an OA allocation. Nobody's going to touch him because of that. And it's the same for Pulse. He took $2 billion, re-sacrificed it to his own address and became the OA again. He's never going to give up a supply. He's never going to give up control. So that narrative is done for. He's too narcissistic to even consider
That's
that.
how you get 10,000 extra gains, though. That's how you get the price performance, though.
No, sorry, dude. No, you're wrong.
Can you explain why that's wrong?
No, sorry, Pulse. While I don't wish to go over what is now known as a common issue within that community. Now, what we need to understand is
how is
the shiny.
Sorry,
could you not interrupt me,
just
please?
the dynamic.
It's extremely rude.
Can you just
It's
explain
extremely
the
rude.
statement before you move on?
It's extremely rude. Could you stop interrupting me, please? So, essentially, what we need to understand is that Richard Hart is a narcissistic cunt. Pulsechain's failed. Hex has failed. It's going nowhere. You need to get over yourselves, dudes. You're welcome in the X1 in the Zen economy.
Now, how does 90% not moving not create the price performance that we saw in the past? And why do you not want it to occur in the future?
Sorry, but we don't conform to an OA.
Dude, you just any sense, man.
You won't be interested in this community, dude, because we won't pay you.
Argument, but it's hilarious because I talk to Jack Levin all the time. I've been on stream with him twice.
Of course you do.
He's been on Shill Tank before it even launched. I know a lot.
Remove them sunglasses, dude. You're 50 years old. Remove them sunglasses, dude. You're 50 years old.
Obviously, Zen did everything to Pulsechain that it did with every other chain, including Ethereum. And you're seeing that right now. Now, we can't judge the gas until another week or two. And then we can talk about gas prices and what's going on. As far as the bridge, that really doesn't have anything to do with Pulsechain itself. That's something actually kind of separate from Pulsechain. So you're judging the bridge to Pulsechain and Pulsex, and that's two different types of that's just two different things. So I think what's happening is everyone's emotional. Everyone is emotional to one side or the other, whether you like it or you don't. Everyone's cutting to conclusions a little too early, and I can't say it's a failure yet. If I saw these gas prices at a 500 to a 50x to a 500x, I'd be the first one to tell you that was a failure. I don't want to hear this is McDonald's this and Wendy's this and we're just splitting. That's just excuses, and that's from someone who owns Pulsechain. So that would be a straight up excuse to try to change your marketing style to say, oh, we're McDonald's and we're a half McDonald's. No. That's not why we all thought it was going to be one Pulsechain or not cheaper to transact, and it's not. So those are facts.
Thank you, bro.
However, it is too early to make that statement because it was doing that until Zen launched. I know the exact time Zen launched, and I saw the exact time the prices raised up. But at the same time, I'm not going to blame Zen because it's a decentralized fucking layer one. And Zen did that to every single blockchain. And what happened afterwards? The blockchain gas fees went down. So even if it went down to 10 pulse, because it was trading at less than one, a little over 1 pulse back when the gas before Zen came out. If it did 10 times more than that, and at 10 pulse, when all said and done,
I would say that was a complete success, because if it did 1,000x and was sitting at 20 cents, well, it only costs 10 pulse, and that would be completely fine in gas fees. So the point that I'm making is we are judging way too early.
Yeah, we definitely are.
How many of you are father in this space? Okay, good. I'm a father too. When you have your first son, I'm gonna make this like parabola to make a point so you guys can understand something and how this crypto worlds work. I'm gonna do it very fast. When you have your first son, you are very happy. You want your son to grow up. You want to see your son do his first steps, and you are very proud of your son taking those first step, right? So now your son is growing up, your daughter is growing up, and your daughter is going through some problems in his life and also a different type of situation. But you want your daughter or your son, your child, to be successful in life, right? So now you're giving your child all the tools they need. You're educating your son, you're educating your kids to be the best what they can be in life, right? You put them right on the right path so they can go there. So now you have your first kid, now you have your second kid. You're gonna do the same thing over and over again. Why? Because you understood that your formula worked. So now you want the second formula also to work. So this is coming from someone that invested in Hex in beginning of 2019, December 19 and 2019, and Sacrifice for Pulsechain. Something that I've been doing is analyzing and observing every step of every founder that I've been seeing around in this crypto industry. It's something that I understood from Richard Hart. So I have to give that to him, right? Is that he want to be the best man in crypto. He wants to be the best person in crypto. He wants to be the god. He will never let Pulsechain fail. And I'm going to tell you guys why. Because it's his pressure diamond, right? This guy made Pulsechain for a reason. And I don't know if you guys saw some of my videos, what I did in Amsterdam with him. And I asked him a lot of questions. And one of the main questions I asked him was, what is your future vision of Pulsechain? And he just gave me a simple question. I'm going to do the same thing I did with Hex. So this led me thinking, and I'm talking about 2021. So it's the same thing. I'm making a parabola. If you understand, you understood it. If you didn't, you don't. Yeah, there's something. The point I want to make is, and make everything clear, is he's not gonna put Pulsechain to failure, because first of all, he has the money to do the same thing he did with Hex. He's gonna do it with Pulsechain. Even if you don't want it, even if I don't want it, he's gonna do it. Why? Because he's never gonna let his word down that he's gonna be the best man in crypto. So I'm betting on his ego, not on the token. So now you have a different ecosystem that would have a different type of developers working on the chain, and this is bringing it's going to help to bring some massive adoption. It's going to help. It's not going to solve the problem. We know that. I know that from the beginning, because I have been observing what Ethereum have been doing. I have been observing what Polygon have been doing. I have been observing what all the chains have been doing, and I'm all the chains. I'm not like one maximalist, one chain stuff. No, I'm everywhere. Why? Because I understand the main thing about making money in crypto, and how you can make money in crypto is to be early adopter of a token, no matter where it is. And that's the main key of being in crypto and being successful, being early adopter. If you don't want to be early adopter of Pulsechain, you're not gonna miss out on it, because it's not a big thing. It's not an innovation. But if you want to make money, it's a way to go, because Richard Hart always put his money where his mouth is.
Crypto Profeta, I kind of agree with what you're saying, just as far as betting on the ego versus betting on the coin, and that's something that I also think that is also why he's not accepting Jack Levin's help, because
it's some truth in that.
Jack can actually help, but his ego is not going to let Jack help, and that's another thing. But I believe what you're saying, and it's definitely a good observation.